alikuwa ananichapa na akaninyonga.
Na anasema nini sasa?
Sasa hiyo aongei, but unaona alikuwa anaguruma yani, but unaona ananinyonga. Mimi nikafight mpaka tukatoka nje ya mlango na scream. Bila aliona na scream, I think yeye aliona huyu sasa ni kama nampea. Alikuwa anataka sasa kunirusha kutokea 5th floor. Nikamgonga. Bila nilimgonga hiyo kukimbia, ikape na kanishika mko. Ndo akanikata ya kichwa. Nikaanguka. Bila nilianguka, vile sasa nilianguka, unaona hiyo process ya kuamka, ndo sasa alikuwa ana slash. Ana slash.
Hata mfanye nini mimi bado napenda Jacky. Na sitamwacha. Yeah.
Hata mfanye aje.
Hiyo ni yake. Mimi kuna
hata amharibu.
Hata amharibu. Sinaona amelenga tu uso. Mimi simwachi. Nataka tu uishi mali yako akijue. Akijua mimi napenda Jacky. Hata amwekee nini bado ni wa mine.
The cycle of violence is a cycle. There's a honeymoon phase where this man is very kind to you. This man is so good to you. Things are rosy. This is what makes people stay. The honeymoon stage. Yeah, unanunuliwa gifts, anything you want.
Because Jacky said that. She said he would give her everything
she wanted. So you don't stay for the fighting stage. You stay for the honeymoon phase. So what happens is the honeymoon phase, towards the end, it goes to something we call the tension stage, where things are not okay. You are not yet been beaten, but unaanza kutembea on tenterhooks. You know, you're walking on tenterhooks. You're very afraid. Things are escalating, quarrels, insults, matusi, you know, things are not okay. This now leads towards the fighting stage, which is the last stage, which is now where the fights happen. The fights leads back to the honeymoon phase where he apologizes, he buys you gifts, things are good. So it's always a cycle.
Hello and welcome back to Tuko Talks. My name is Ngugi. Now, before we took a short break, Jacky was telling us that Stanley had moved in next to her, and also she will be talking to us about how he attacked her, where he is, and what's next after this story. Jacky, so ukanotice ako hapo karibu.
Stanley alikuja akakomboa nyumba next, but hatukuijua nani anaishi karibu na sisi. So ndo Kevo aliniulizanga, na nikuulize hii nyumba next nani huwa anaishi? Nikamwambia mimi sijaiona mtu anaishi, but kuna nilionanga chali mrefu akitoka. Na nilimuona from behind. Sikumuona mbele. So sikujua ni nani. Si tukasema jua hiyo nyumba tu kwa hiyo na lights zikiashwa. But kuna time ungepatanga hapo nje pameweko tu viatu twa mdemu.
Na mkuuliza caretaker?
Caretaker, juu mimi nakumbuka hiyo nyumba kuna watu walikuwa wanaulizia, walikuwa hao wagedhomo. Lastly hao ndo walikuwa wanaulizia hiyo nyumba.
Okay.
Na vile alikujanga, caretaker akamwambia tu hiyo nyumba ilishapata mtu kama siku 2.
Okay.
So nyumba tukuwa hijua mwenye anaishi, juu tukuwa hiyo na stima, na tukuwa tunasikia movement. Hiyo ulikuwa Wednesday.
Okay, yeah.
Wednesday 31st, Kevo alitoka around 12:30. Na akaniambia kawaida tu huwa akitoka nafunga mlango. Vile alienda, so unajua juu nimejifungia kwa nyumba, mimi nikaanza tu shughuli zangu za hao.
Ulikuwa umeacha job yako?
Job, so hiyo time sikukuwa nafanya job, juu bado sikukuwa nimeheal poa hii.
Yenye alikuwa attack?
Yenye aliniattack, bado sikukuwa nimepona poa, juu ya pia macho ilikuwa na complication.
Okay. Vile
Kevo alitoka, mimi nikaendelea kufanya tu job zangu za kawaida kwa hao. Vile nilikaa nikasema acha niende kwa shop, nikanunue credit. Nikatoka na nikafunga mlango. Na nikaenda kwa shop, nikirudi, nilinotice hiyo nini ya mlango, si vile niliacha. Na nikasimama hapo nje, nikajiuliza, ni tule tutoto tunakujanga hapa kusema anko wa sweet ama but hakuna mtu niliona hapo nje. Mimi nikasema acha tu niingie. Kawaida nikiingia kwa nyumba mimi hufunga na kifuli. Hiyo siku sikufunga. Niliacha tu mlango hivyo. Nikapeleka soda kitchen. But hiyo time ya kupeleka soda nilisikia tu mwili inakata. Nilisikia tu baridi. Na nilikuwa naishi na kapapi utoto wa nyumba. Kakabak sana. Sasa nikasema niende niangalie kwa nini kanabaka ama, but nikajua tu nikamekuwa tu kakibakingi hivyo. But kalikuwa kanagwara mlango ya balcony. So vile nilipeleka soda kurudi, nikasikia mwili hapana. Nikasema acha ni check kila mahali ndo niweze kujifungia na kifu. Nikaangalia mlango ya bathroom. Mlango ya bathroom na ya bedroom kuna vile zilikuwa almost zimekaribiana. Vile nilifungua ya bathroom nikaona hakuna mtu. Hiyo kufunga nika notice mlango ya bedroom imemove. Mimi akili yangu ilijiambia ni ile impact ya kufunga na nguvu. But nikasema sitaingia bedroom direct ati mara moja. Nikaenda tu pole pole kuangalia hivi nyuma ya mlango ndo niliona Stanley. Alikuwa tu amejiam na hiyo Masai soda ameinua juu. Ndo vile aliona nimemuona ndo akani shika top yenye nilikuwa nimevaa. Nikaitoa. Ndo akaweza kunishika. Hiyo time nilikuwa na dread. Ndo vile alishika hizo dread na akazikata. So hapo ndo nikaanza kuscream nikitoka nje. Na alikuwa ananichapa ngumi.
Alikukata mpaka dread?
Alizikata. Alikuwa ananichapa na akaninyonga.
Na anasema nini sasa?
Sasa hiyo aongei, but unaona alikuwa anaguruma yani, but unaona ananinyonga. Mimi nikafight mpaka tukatoka nje ya mlango na scream. Vile aliona na scream, I think aliona huyu sasa ni kama nampea. Alikuwa anataka sasa kunirusha kutokea 5th floor. Nikamgonga. Vile nilimgonga hiyo kukimbia, ikape na kanishika mko. Ndo akanikata ya kichwa. Nikaanguka. Vile nilianguka, unaona hiyo process ya kuamka, ndo sasa alikuwa
ana slash.
Ana slash. Neighbor akasikia. Hapo next kulikuwa na neighbor Charlie. Vile alisikia akachungulia kwa window. Hakutoka. Ikahappen kuna mama alikuwa anakuja huko juu kuanika nguo. Wakapatana na Stanley face to face. Stanley vile aliona, I think alijua hivyo vile amenislash hivyo juu paka hapa alinikata, alijua amenikata hadi shingo. Akaanza kukimbiza huyo mama. Huyo mama akakimbia akaenda akachukua watoto wake wakajifungia. So Stanley alikuwa anateremka kwa stairs akipanguza hiyo nini alikuwa ananikata nayo. Huyo mama ndo alitoka akikimbia akisema mwizi. Watu wa Nduthi vile walisikia hivyo wakaanza kukimbiza Stanley. Mimi sasa unajua hiyo wakati sasa mimi pia napiga nduru nikiteremkanga stairs. Juu nilikuwa nasema mimi sikujua ameteremka, nilikuwa najua ako huko juu. So nilikuwa nikikimbia nikisema ako huko juu. Kumbe yeye alishateremka. Vile alikimbizwa na watu wa Nduthi, alishikwa na alikuwa achomwe. Hiyo time ndo nikapelekwa hosi.
So ukaacha kama ameshikwa na watu wa
Nduthi? Mimi nikitoka nje ya gate, nilisikia watu wakisema, "Madam, wewe enda hospitali, huo muhalifu ameshikwa."
So nani alikupeleka hosi?
Nilipandishwa pikipiki.
Na watu tu wa pikipiki?
Kulikuwa na wamama hapo nje. Hao ndo walinipandisha pikipiki, nikapelekwa hadi hosi.
And then?
Ndio vile nilipeleka hosi ndo nikaanza kufanyia first aid. Nikapeana namba ya Kevin, akapigiwa simu, akaambiwa bibi yake ameletwa hosi na amekatwa. Ndo Kevin akakuja wakiwa na mama yake, ndo akanipata hiyo hali yenye nilikuwa. Kevin hata vile aliingia hata hakuongea. Juu alinipata nikiwa mesi vibaya sana. Juu hii nyama yote ilikuwa nje. But saa mimi tu nilikuwa naongea nikiambia madaktari nita survive, hivyo tu ndo nilikuwa nashinda nikiwaambia.
So ulikuwa una fight kabisa
kabisa. Nilikuwa nawaambia juu hata niliposhukishwa kwa motorbike nikiingia kwa hosi, niliingia tu nikiscream nikisema mimi sikufi. So hata hao daktari wakinishona nilikuwa nauliza nita survive, walikuwa wananiambia uta survive.
Na sahi tumefikia wapi
kwa
hiyo kesi?
Sahi Stanley alishashikwa, wako ndani, ndo tunafuatilia.
We unaona ni kama venye tu hizi vitu zilianza ungemuondokea tu?
Ni vile mtu linajuangi, lakini ningeulizwa ile siku ya first vile Stano alinigonganga, hiyo ndo siku ninge move out.
Hii uoga alikuwa amekuweka bado iko?
Hiyo uoga? Hiyo uoga sahi sina hiyo uoga.
Kwa nini?
Juu ya kitu nimepitia imefanya nikuwe strong.
Pahali yako ungetaka ajue nini?
Pahali yako nataka ajue kitu alifanya, hakufanya kitu mzuri. Mimi nimemsamea, lakini wacha Mungu afanye part yake.
Hatusamehei mtu hapa. Hatusamehei mtu Jacky. Hapana, hakuna. Na sahi bado unaishi na Kevin? Sahi
naishi na Kevin.
Na una feel uko safe kabisa?
Kitu iko ni mimi sitaki kumbeba kwa roho yangu.
Stanley.
Mimi sitaki kumbeba. Jua hii alifanya kitu si mzuri. Lakini juu mimi nataka kuishi na
amani.
Sitaki kumbeba kwa roho yangu.
Na obviously kuna uoga na akiachiliwa.
Ni kitu itashinanga tu ikinisumbua.
Na una ile uoga na akiachiliwa sasa?
Uoga niko nao juu akiweza achiliwa anaweza kuja na ubaya ingine, itakuwa ubaya mbaya sana.
Ungeambia authorities nini sahi?
Ni kitu naweza taka kusema ni yani hii kesi nataka nini justice yangu ipatikane. Na Stano asiwachiliwe.
Lakini umbebi kwa roho?
Mimi sitambeba kwa roho.
Acha nikuulize kitu Jacky, kuna watu wengi sana wako kwa hii situation yako. Na si lazima ikuwe ni wa mama pekee, pia wa baba. Bibi yako anakugonga, bwanako anakugonga, lakini bado unaendelea kukaa hapo. Ungetaka kuambia nini?
Mimi kitu yenye ningetaka kuambia wasinyamaze. Wakiona kama mtu kama ako kwa bad relationship ama kwa marriage yenye iwork, move mapema kabla ifanyike ama imuhapenie vile imenihapenia.
Hosi wanasema nini?
Hosi hizi stitches niliambiwa kwanza ni heal, afu nitaenda kufanywa surgery.
So daktari wako optimistic. Wako na hope.
Walisema kwanza hizi stitches heal ndo waweze sasa kufanya your facial mask.
All right. Sawa basi, and thank you for, I know it's not an easy conversation. Conversation si rahisi. Thank you for having it with us. And I believe your life sahi, the fact that you are alive is what is important. The fact that hata you are able to sit hapa na upeane story yako, that's very brave, kwa sababu so many things would have happened. Lakini no matter what inaenda through your head, just remember you are alive. And as long as you are alive, you can handle anything and you can face anything. Ni sawa. All right, so as I promised you guys, we have Kevin, who is Jacky's boyfriend. He'll be joining us and also get to tell us his thoughts on this conversation and what's next for them. And then right thereafter, Njeri Migwi will be closing this conversation for us. Kev, habari yako?
Nzuri sana.
Ebuji introduce kwa
My name's Kevin Dombe Mwai.
Yeah.
Mimi ndio hazi ya Jacky. And tuli meet last year July. And nikaona huyu dem ni mpoa. Kuna vile kuna style amejibeba. So tukaanza tu kupush ile tu mdogo mdogo. Ikafika hadi kitu December hapo. Ndio nika notice Jacky kuna vile tukiendanga home anakuanga na uoga. Analia hataki kwenda home. So ndo tukaanza tu kubonga, akaanza kuniopen up story yake. Ndio nika realize kuna vile akona hazi mwenye anampiganga. And nikamshow tu mimi sipo aende kuishi na umse akianza kukupiga hata kumada pia. Ndio nikamwambia tu amwe once akam tuishi naye. Na kutoka hiyo time alikam home kwangu hakuwa irudi kwake. So ndo uisha akaanza kumattack mara ya first ilikuwa deck hapo. Akaenda kamgonga alikuwa amevaa ring. Kamgonga hapa kwa nini, nikaitwa Jacky akaniita, nikampeleka hosi akashonwa. Tukapoa hadi January 5 hapo. Nikapigiwa phone na hosi. Jacky ametakiwa na amedungwa na ako in critical condition. So nimchukue, nikampeleka Kenyatta. Nilikuwa tu alone. Sasa na bleed huko nyuma, hapa hivi amedungwa, amestabiwa. Kampeleka Kenyatta. Nikiwa Nyato nikaona line yenye watu ni wengi na hapa hata survive. Nikauliza doc hapo, ambulance. Ni hosi gani hapa karibu? Naweza mpeleka nataka ni expert ina noma. Akanishow Bellevue. Hapo chap mpaka Bellevue. Bellevue akaadmitiwa. Ndo kidogo anacheka kakam. Tukakaa hapo like the whole night mpaka kesho yake. Juu alikuwa yuko poa kabisa. But mimi nilistick hapo. Juu siku imagine vile anaweza dead kwa mkono wangu. So nilikuwa na pray to God huyu dem asiende. Tukapoa akakaa hiyo hosi like a month. Hapo Bellevue juu ilikuwa ni noma, amekuwa ile oxygen. A month akatoka akaenda Nakuru. So juu mimi nilikuwa nishaka naye like a few weeks. Nilikuwa nishona huyu dem mwenyewe anaweza make wife poa vile mimi napenda. So nikaanza kuinsistia madhangu, mimi nataka kwenda kwa kina Jacky nimchukue na kwa custom zetu, mimi siwezi na tu uchukue mdemu hivyo, lazima nifuate
ile
mila yetu sasa. So mpaka mimi ningeenda fast ndio nimchukue. Alafu sasa kwao unajua mamake pia anaogopa mdemu kuja Nairobi juu uisha anasemekana ako
area.
Ako within. Lakini mimi sasa mimi siogopi hiyo. Mimi naona udem ndio mimi nataka. Mother kanishoni sawa tu, nikaenda Nakuru Harambe kwanza. Hiyo day kutaka kurudi na Jacky budake akakataa. Akasema tu sawa, akaniambia nirudi siku nyingine. Nikakaa kama week. Nikarudia Jacky sasa. Ndio tukakaa naye Nairobi. After amekaa Nakuru like a month hivi. Yeah.
Okay. Sasa alafu sasa ndio hii incident
hii sasa ya tatu. So ya tatu mimi tukiwa na Jacky hapo home, kuna vile kulikuwa na tension hapo home. Uoga yani nilikuwa nashinda nikiambia Jacky nikitoka funga na kufuli. So hiyo day nafikiri nilitoka kitu 12:30 hapo. Hapo nje kulikuwa kuna jengo hizi makabro zinawekwa hapo mtaa. So nikitoka I think umseni kama alikuwa na time hapo cause nilitoka ndio yeye I think akaingia. Joao so hapo nje alikuwa na show, alikuwa hapo home. Alikuwa kwa hapo nje. Kufika place nilikuwa nimeenda kutulia kitu around 2:33 ma calls ndizo napigiwa mob. Hai nashanga hizi ma landline nani ananipigia mimi landline. Kupick na wife yako ako hosi. So jana nilipanic hata nilisimamanga. Juu nashangaa tena. Kwani Jacky uish ama nauliza boyfriend mgani mnaongea? Nikambo Jacqueline Nyagudi. Come very fast hapo hosi. Kwenda hapo fika hosi mimi sikuamini Kenya niliona. Jacky alikuwa blood kila mahali top. Yani si kama alafu lakini zuri Jacky ni strong. So sikutaka kumuonyesha nimepanic lakini nilisimama tu strong ile tu nimge. Anauliza kama atadedi, namwambia utadedi uko po. Ndio mother yangu akakam tukamcheki akashonwa alafu tukamrudisha home. Yeah.
Jacky amesema Stanley alikuwa amekomboa hiyo nyumba mlikuwa next.
Yeah.
Mlijua nani anaishi huko?
So hiyo hao kulikuwa na wagidhomo fulani walikujanga kuuliza. Chali na mademo wawili. So mimi kwa akili yangu nikajuangani yao, lakini sasa nikiwa kwa balcony mpenda kwa balcony. Nashindangu hii hao mbona wakishangu stima? Sijaona mtu akifua nguo hapo nje ama kuanika nguo ama radio. Lakini kuna kama na movement. Usiku pia tukilala, mimi ulala late sana, ma 3 pengine nasoma ama ma movie. Nilikuwa nasikia kuna movement tu. Si kawaida. Unajua pia ukiwa na mahali unasikia kuna ile tension tu. So kuna day niko hapo kwa balcony na mother Jacky. Hii juzi tu msaka vuta fegi kwa balcony. Mama Jacky nikasikia akiuliza, nani anavuta
sigara?
Mimi Jacky akasema ni neighbor. Ndio hapo kidogo kitu ka click nikauliza Jacky, nikuulize nani anishingi hao? Akaniambia pia juu. Kitu kikaniambia hebu ende uangalie. Kwenda kucheki mlango. Next tu nipata mlango imefunguliwa. Alafu curtains za huko ni similar na zetu. Nikasense hapa kuna kitu. Alafu ndani kuna giza. Nikaita caretaker na kuna chali neighbor hapo next. Nikamshebu tuingie. Caretaker anaogopa kuingia. Mimi niliingia tu ndani nikawasha stima. Sikuamini vitu niliona ndani. Juu nilipata mattress mzee, gloves, chakula zimeoza na chakula zingine fresh, maziwa, mamkate, matunda. So natunguo kwa bag. So yana add up umse ni ule mse kwa kitu attack. Kuuliza kiateka anasema hajui. Nikamuuliza hujui aje, kwani ukichukuliwa hao si lazima upeane ID? Ndio ile kwenda Karao kuchunguza, nilipata hiyo hao imechukuliwa na jina langu. Yeah. Next year imeshachukuliwa, ameshalipa deposit plus another month na jina yangu sasa. Na mimi kuna kitu kama hiyo nilikuwa najua. So I think Owisha alikuwa anataka kuniframe mimi. Awe Jacky aende, mimi ndo nikae na.
Wewe ndio ulimua.
Yeah. Asingejitoa sasa. Lakini mimi ule Mungu naomba aniwezi mimi.
Yeah. So kama watu wa pikipiki wangemshika hiyo
siku. Hiyo story mimi sasa hizi ningekuwa ndani niliua Jacky. Yeah. Even ndo alikuwa ameframe sasa.
So hiyo siku after mlipata hiyo nyumba kuko hivyo vitu zilitolewa ama?
Hazikutolewa, polisi waliitwa wakakaa wakafanya mambo yao hapo. Wakachunguza wakaona ni ukweli. Yeah.
Halafu after how many days ndio akamuattack?
Hiyo ni after ameshamuattack. Tulijua niishi hapo after ashamuattack. Hiyo ilikuwa before.
So
ni after.
Ni after.
Yeah, after.
Okay.
Yeah, after nilikaa mtu na waza na shangaa. Juu akishikwa alishikwa bila kiatu. So mimi nishinango huyu kiatu ya mtu aliwacha wapi huku juu. Sisi tunaishi 5th floor. So nilikuwa nashinana nikizunguka kiatu yake iliwacha wapi. Kumbe hiyo nyumba ndo alikuwa anaishi. So imagine tumeishi a month na mhalifu hapo.
Mumeishi na so hii kujua hata huku kuko hivi ni after ashashikwa.
After ashashikwa.
Okay.
So ni Mungu tu amekuwa anakama kitu revealia maneno tu. Yeah.
So ilikuwa sawa wewe ndio umefremiwa.
Yeah, ilikuwa mimi ndio nifremiwe. Yeah.
Ungetaka ajue nini?
Mimi ningependa tu justice ifanyike. Ndio watu wengine wanaume kama yeye walana ama wanawake wenye wanafanyanga vitu watu walana hiyo kesi. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Na wewe ungetaka Jacky ajue nini?
Jacky ajue tu mimi nampenda na Mungu anampenda sana. Yeah.
Maana hii
juu si rahisi. Mara 3 si rahisi. Si rahisi. Ni kwanza Mungu anampenda sana. Alafu akanitumia mimi hapa niko naye.
Yes.
Hata amfanye nini mimi bado napenda Jacky. Na sitamwacha. Yeah.
Hata amfanya aje.
Hiyo ni yake. Mimi kuna
hata amharibu.
Hata amharibu. Tunaona amelenga tu uso. Mimi simwachi. Nataka tu uishi mali yako akijue. Akijua mimi napenda Jacky. Hata amwekee nini bado ni wa mine. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Asante Kev.
Karibu.
Asante sana.
Nashukuru.
All right.
Yep.
So I don't think it would be wise for us to close this conversation before we get a specialist who will be able to tackle this for us.
Okay.
Na pia I think Njeri will be in a better position to tell us what happens now after such cases. So allow me to let Njeri come and introduce herself. She's not new on the show and she is contributing a lot to this segment. So Njeri, kuja hapa.
My name is Njeri Migwi.
Yeah.
I am a co-founder of Usikimia.
Yes.
Usikimia is an organization that deals with sexual and gender-based violence. One of the things we do is we run a safe home for women and children who have been affected by issues and matters of gender-based violence.
Yeah.
We also, on occasion, when men reach out to us, we also look for shelter or even accommodate them for a short period of time. Men don't want to stay in shelters for very long, so we stay with them. And one of the things we also do, we provide counseling, so a safe space, a sanctuary, and a 3-month stay, so that at least by the time you're deciding what you want to do with your life, umepata, you know, kupumzisha akili. It's very important. We also help the people who come to us, survivors, to look for justice. To look justice, by justice I mean kwenda kwa polisi, going to hospital, following up on these cases. The case has happened. What people don't know is how much follow-up is needed to conclude a case. Say for example, like for Jacky.
I must commend you, because if there's one thing, Njeri, you are very consistent when it comes to matters gender-based violence, and you use your platform to even create awareness. But you know, sometimes on social media people just post for the likes and the views and all that, but it's every time I speak to you, you are following up a case or two, and you posted Jacky's story on your social media platform, and of course it got a lot of engagement, but because you've been with her and you are still working with her, and I noticed she was not able to fully express herself, can you take us through briefly through the story?
You will notice even as Jacky is talking to you, she's very disconnected from her story. Most people will be like, mbona hali, mbona she's not emotional, what is happening to her, why is she like this? I want to tell you that what you're seeing is as a result of trauma, that she cannot even fully express her story. She hasn't told you the innate details of it. So the best way for a survivor to speak their story is to disconnect themselves from it, so that it's not like it's happened to them. It's like a film version. There you see a film and then you express it. And of course, this is a woman who has been living in a lot of fear. So you can imagine even her just sitting on this seat. We need to applaud her for her courage and for her bravery. I'm so proud of Jacky today for just speaking out, because if she didn't speak out, we wouldn't have known. There are things that I feel like we need to even just go back even into Jacky's childhood, where she mentioned that she saw a cycle of violence in her life, which was her mother and father. That actually affected a lot of the decisions she made, even with a wish. If you see, and I want to tell this to mothers, to women who say, I'm staying in a violent marriage because of my children. Because that's an excuse you find. A lot of women always saying that, I am in this marriage because of my children. I don't want to leave. Yes, he beats me, but I don't want to leave because of my children. What happened is Jacky equated violence with love. Because once a child grows up, what they see is what they equate. For girls, they will be attracted to men who are violent without even knowing. We say girls marry their fathers. So they will see a man who is violent and they'll be like, wow, this is how love is expressed. And for boys, you will see that most boys who grew up seeing their fathers beat their mothers, actually most of them grew up to be violent. They either grew up to be very violent or they grew up not to be violent at all. But it is one of the two. So unfortunately for Jacky, she met somebody, and because she was so used that violence is a normal way of life. And it's not. And it is not. I want to tell women today, and even men, that violence is not love. There are other ways of resolving issues in marriage. So come now to where Jacky was in college. The first time he beat her so badly, she missed her finals. So you realize that from the get-go, her dreams were stolen. Her dreams are in fashion. You've actually seen how fashionable she is. Absolutely. Even in spite of everything that she's gone through, she's very fashionable, very well dressed. But she never finished, or we stole her dreams. And she didn't even realize it. She just kept on staying, and she was very complacent. She never finished her school. She never finished her school, which is what brought her into Nairobi in the first place. And that is also socialization. Unaona normalization ya violence. She saw it at home. So even when a wish hit her, she didn't call her mom for a very long time. It's until her sister saw it. And that's when ika escalatiwa. Unaona? But she was already living in fear. Unaona? She was not allowed to do anything. She was just living in this house. Yes, provision was there, but she didn't have any freedom. She didn't have freedom of association, of friends, of even just expressing herself, of talking, ukiongea unachapwa. Look at how that led to her living with another woman who has your husband's child.
Ma, it's that
that's
part.
not normal.
That part is like,
yeah, it's because when in Pole, unajua, people have made it that when they look at you, when you know, you're being told mwanamke ni kuvumilia, and that's the life Jacky was living, even though you can see intentionally this man did her dirty.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he did not love
and
her.
He didn't.
That's
No.
not love.
No, it's not. It was actually this. If you look at it, here is a wish bringing another woman with a child into his house.
Yes.
And Jacky is open, and this woman is like, "Ala huku ni kwangu."
Yeah.
Which I do. Can you imagine? Your psyche is already so down, and then here is another woman. This is a man who's already violent towards you, so disrespectful, and you keep on forgiving him. First, because you also want to make this marriage work. Unaona, there's this thing. Women are conditioned, socialized towards being. You need to keep your marriage because society frowns on divorce. Society frowns on women leaving their boyfriends. They're always out here stigmatizing single mothers. So unapata all this are reasons why women stay, because I'm sure there's so many people asking, why did she stay?
Yes.
She could have left.
Yeah.
No, she couldn't. We are so conditioned to staying. We are conditioned to not living. And if you leave, you'll be called a feminist, like it's an insult. You'll be told so many things. Aliacha bwana, alifanya, you know, all these things.
What about people who ask, because now Jacky has had the opportunity to tell us what happened, but sometimes you see a woman who has been beaten or a man, and the first question someone asks is, alifanya nini ndio akachapwa hivyo?
Why should you be beaten? No one needs a reason to beat you.
Yes.
I'm a human being. I occupy space. Talk to me. Niambie, by the way, Njeri, hapa na hapa, mi sikufurahi. Ulifanya hivi, me I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I think, moving forward, I would want us to stay like this. You know, if we are in a relationship, we are equals, and we should have a recourse of communication. Mukiingia sulikatia udem.
Yes.
So you must have been able to talk. And as Jacky says, one of the reasons she was attracted to Kevin is that Kevin is a good listener and Kevin is a good communicator.
And he's kind-hearted.
Things that were not there. And kind. Things that she didn't have in her relationship with the Wish.
Yes.
Which, from what you can hear, lasted more than 10 years. Yeah?
How do
This is 10 years of oppression.
Yes.
You know, 10 years of oppression. 10 years of being harassed, of being intimidated, and
reducing her to
reducing her
nothing.
to nothing, you know. And you stop believing in your value, in your worth, because Jacky is a very beautiful woman.
Beautiful.
She's absolutely stunning.
Yes.
And you know that by how he has intentionally, slashed her face. That tells you the story. The full story is there. The place he has intentionally always gone for is her face. Meaning he was trying to destroy her so nobody else can see her.
Can get attracted to her.
Because this is what attracted him to her.
Yes.
So if he can spoil her face,
Yeah.
then nobody else will want Jacky, and Jacky will go back to him.
Exactly.
So we are not even talking about a regular human being. We're talking about a psychopath or a sociopath. Because psychopaths are born, sociopaths are made. When I was listening to Jacky when she was telling me her story, part of the things she didn't tell you is that in January 5th, when she got her, the second time he beat her, this is not the first, like the serious times that he has beaten her after they have left. Remember, Jacky is no longer living with this man. She's already moved on. He has also moved on. He has another woman, he has a child, he has other women. What Jacky didn't tell you is that he had a series of affairs. When they were still together, and even after she moved on. And he was still trying to get Jacky, knowing all these things, you know.
Yes.
And Jacky was already trying to move on with her life, but she was even afraid of telling him. Meaning, in her heart of heart, she knew, if I tell him, huyu atanimaliza. And now she moves on with her life. And he finds out this time. The time that Kevin took her to hospital, he slashed her here. He cut her in her eye. You know, alimkata kwa macho. Right now as we talk, that eye, Jacky can't see with it.
She's only seen with one eye?
Yes.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
the kind of damage you're looking at. Yeah? You know, he slashed her like this. So, what was the intention? Unaona? We are looking at a man who has actually actualized the plan. How do you plan with the watchman? Because the watchman for where Jacky used to work, Jacky ran a very successful wines and spirits business.
Yes.
He was involved. Plus, the boda rider that he went to meet, that now ndio akamdunga mara the first time where she was taken to Bellevue. Unaona, she stayed there for a month. That means this is a woman who was really, really hurt. And then she went back home, kupona. Barely. We are looking at January, and then now we are looking at April. That's what, 4 months?
Yeah.
3 months actually.
3 months.
So Ata, she's not even finished healing.
And here comes the guy again.
And here comes the guy.
Yeah.
Can you tell me the number? Can you imagine somebody who is planning how wicked this is, and taking a house in Kevin's name? That's crazy. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
What's with the authorities? Like domestic violence ni mambo ya nyumbani and then msolve. Because this is not the first story I'm hearing where someone has been beaten to death, and the first thing the chief said was, ama the police said is, rudi nyumbani uongee na bwanako. What's with that?
I want to speak towards the fact that people do not know the psychological problems of somebody, of a woman who wants to leave her husband. I will not say about men, because this is something that again happens to women more than it happens to men. You see the socialization to be a good wife. So every time labda mnaenda mnakosana, unampeleka polisi, unamreport, and then she goes back home to her husband.
Yes.
And so police are like, watarudiana tu, we are not going to take care, we are not going to bother, we are not going to follow up, because you know these women normally come and withdraw these charges. But you see, that's not the problem. The problem is you are psychologically this is your husband, this is your lover, this is your boyfriend, somebody you know, you are intimately. In fact, we no longer call it domestic violence when it's a man and a woman who have had a relationship. We call it intimate partner violence. It actually shows you the reason why it's so hard to leave this person. It's the father of your children, somebody, like in the case of Jacky, 10 years of your life, you've been with this man. It's not going to be something, it's not like a casual friendship where
that you walk away from,
you know,
to
it's going to take time for you to detach. You know, this person knows which buttons to tune, and you will sing his tune, or you will sing her tune. Atakuja, he will speak to you, and he will make you feel like some sort of a way that he will make you feel like, oh, you know, anaweza kuongelesha. The same way he got you is the same way he will still get you again. So he will sing it, and you will go back, in spite of the fact that, you know, he's violent. And one of the things you need to understand about the cycle of violence is that it is not just ati mnachapangwa daily. No, the cycle of violence is a cycle. There's a honeymoon phase where this man is very kind to you, this man is so good to you, things are rosy. This is what makes people stay. The honeymoon stage. Yeah, unanunuliwa gifts, anything you want.
Because Jacky said that. She said he would give her everything
she wanted. So you don't stay for the fighting stage. You stay for the honeymoon phase. So what happens is the honeymoon phase, towards the end, it goes to something we call the tension stage, where things are not okay. You are not yet been beaten, but unaanza kutembea on tenterhooks. You know, you're walking on tenterhooks. You're very afraid. Things are escalating, quarrels, insults, matusi, you know, things are not okay. This now leads towards the fighting stage, which is the last stage, which is now where the fights happen. The fights leads back to the honeymoon phase where he apologizes, he buys you gifts, things are good. So it's always a cycle. So sometimes when you're telling your friend to leave, this man who has been beating her, she's in the honeymoon phase. So things are good. You understand?
Yes.
So things are good. Most women never leave during the honeymoon phase. Most women leave during the tension stage, because now you know the pattern. He's going to be good. You can even tell when the honeymoon phase is ending. He enters the house or she enters the house, and you can feel the tension.
No one
you
is
can
talking
feel
to
the fear.
Yes.
You can feel there's a lot of you're afraid. So this is the thing that you need to understand. That it is not it's not complicated. It's very complicated. And now, of course, for the police, they will disregard it, and you can't blame them, because they also don't have psychological training or the psychological capacity to understand how to handle these issues. So kazi yao ni kukwambia nini? And they have maybe a lot of, I don't know. I know I'm trying to make excuses for them, because I still need to work with them. So they will tell you, mwende nyumbani muresolve. That's the police. What we need is more police that have been trained and sensitized. Yes, we have gender desk, but we need this police, one, to be going for psychological counseling and just a place to offload. I feel like I see a lot of violence, and even after this I'm going for therapy, because the amount of violence I see is so much. And I'm assuming this police also see the same. Do they have therapists? do they have places where they are flawed? All the anger they carry, they become insensitized towards seeing the plight of people. Because what makes, I don't understand how, the first attack that Jacky had, no, not the first, the second, was very violent, that Jacky stayed in hospital for a month. That means it was really, really bad. How is it that the police, this is attempted murder. Both cases, the charge sheet reads attempted murder. How is it that the police didn't pick this murderer? Because what happened could have, if they had arrested him, we would not be here today with a third attempt that almost killed her. Unaona? So we are looking at, what is that? Police negligence? But who can you sue? Who can you tell this? So even that is going, we are consolidating it to make one case for Jacky. And the other thing you need to know is that Owish is in jail right now. He was taken to court because when we got him, we are very thankful again for good policemen like the one who's handling this case in Githurai, Moiki Police, because he's been very good, he's been very consistent, and he pushed this case. That's why the case is in court. Now, the thing is, I want you to know is that Owish was still granted bail. So he can come out. And I want to tell you this. If that man comes out, you can see all these things have been planned. He will go for Jacky.
And he's a good planner.
And he's a good planner. And the plan means that ata sahi akitoka na hiyo bond. Unlike Jacky, who's very forgiving. And I understand. We have been also attuned to forgive. And that is why so many things happen. Because, you know, we forgive. We have these things that we need to forgive. There are some things. We are looking at a man who has stolen 10 years of your life. And he has stolen your dreams, your vision, your face. Unaona, we are going to be in court for a very long time. We have just started the journey. Last week when, we started and we went to court. This is just a journey. The journey of court may take the next 3 years. So that means it's somebody who's stolen 13 years of your life. Yeah. And he might just get away with a slap on his wrist. Because this is domestic violence.
And a bail applies to everyone.
And bail applies. So we got 800,000 for a bond and a surety of the same.
So if he manages it,
he's going to be out.
What does that say about the protection and the security of these domestic victims?
Nothing. It just says that nobody takes these things very seriously. How many times have you had, even on social media, even on your friends, they say mambo ya watu wawili wamejifunikia duve moja wachana nao.
Wamelala kitanda moja hata nayo.
Kitanda moja. People who've covered themselves with the same blanket. But we are not going to deal with it. And the authorities, the kind of disregard they have done in this case tells you how bad violence is. There has been escalation of violence. And for me, I'm going to tell people, just because you love somebody, love is not ownership. It's very important for us to distinctively start de-escalating the violence that we are seeing in this country, especially in matters of intimacy and relationships. Because I agreed to be your girlfriend or your boyfriend, it doesn't mean that you own me. If you look at the behavior of Owish towards Jacky, he doesn't view Jacky as his equal. He views Jacky as his property. He views Jacky as somebody he owns. And if you look at it, this is how we see people. This is how we look at the people we are in love with, like we own them. We don't own people. No one, not even your mother owns you. No one owns people. We need to disassociate ourselves. Imagine we need to learn how to walk away from relationship and leave the other person to prosper. I mean, beloved, above all these things, I wish for you to thrive, and be in health, both physically, financially, everything. When I look at my ex, why should we loved each other. It didn't work out. It is okay. You can go and wish them well and move on with your life. And that is how life is supposed to be. Because it's not everybody that will fall in love with you, Lynn, that is going to marry you or be with you. Which means breakups are part of the cycle of life. So this thing where we feel we own people and these people cannot move on. How dare this person? Why? Why shouldn't he move on? He's not tied to you. We need to release people. We need to let them go. History ride or die. We need to end it.
Bonnie and Clyde.
Yes, Bonnie and no, sir. Where are we riding to? Why do I have to die? No.
Why do I
We're
have
not
to
doing
die?
this thing.
We are not doing this
No,
thing.
we need to
Yes.
cut that off.
Yeah.
If things are not working, walk away.
Walk away.
The church needs to start talking. For me, I'm going to say this because Kenya is a very religious country.
Yes.
We are failing. The church is failing. Why is the church failing? We are not talking about domestic violence. Yeah, this is something that when you're seated in church is affecting the data. Let's talk data. 1 in 3 women will go through SGBV, that's sexual and gender-based violence. So it could be rape, it could be domestic violence, but they will go through it. It could be groping, they will. That is and when they describe it, they say now it's 10, all the way to 90. At a time in their life, they will go. For men, it's 1 in 50. All right? So this means for every 3rd woman in your church, every 3rd woman, so I mean a 1/3 of your congregation is going through in one way or another, a form of violence. If the church doesn't talk about it, who is going to talk about it? That pulpit you've been given as a pastor, you are responsible for not just the spiritual growth of this woman, but even for the physical.
Exactly.
So if you don't stand on that pulpit or an imam and just speak against it and condemn it and say uncharacteristically, women will not be coming to my office to cry that their husbands are beating them at night and I am going to pray. You cannot be sitting in the pastor's office and praying and telling them, vumilia.
Forgive.
The Bible says forgive.
Forgive.
We cannot be having that conversation.
Yes.
We cannot be saying these things when people are dying. You know, women are literally dying. Men are dying. Children are dying. Children are growing up thinking violence is the way forward. Somebody needs to speak to it. It can't just be Njeri. Everybody knows Njeri is a gender-based violence activist.
Yes.
Therefore, she speaks about these things. This needs to be a part of a regular conversation.
Yes.
We need to come together as a country, not to hold a national prayer day to pray against domestic violence. It ain't going away. We need to talk about it. It needs to be a mainstream conversation. Si kusema mama nani aligongwa, mama Jaden aligongwa jana, and then it ends there. No, it needs to be, we need to end this.
Yes.
Nobody is anybody's property.
Nobody.
Love does not mean ownership.
Yes.
Love just means me and you. We have something that connects us.
And if it fades,
allow the other party to walk away.
Yes.
Jacky should have been able to walk away from her relationship.
Yeah.
Intact. Without parts of her missing. Who is going to give them back to her?
Nobody.
Who is going to help her?
And it will always be a constant
and
reminder.
To the women who are going through this thing, and you know you are hiding it. You're hiding it from your parents. You're hiding it from your friends. You know, it's ridiculous the excuses we give. Niligongwa na mlango. You know, I was hit by the door. I fell down the stairs. You know, we have friends and you know them. What I need you to do is we need to learn to cancel. That's why we are called usikimie. Because we are saying we need to stop the silence.
Yes.
We need to speak up. Why are we burying 200 women and men in a year? Those are reported cases of people who have died because of love. Kwani love shouldn't hurt.
Yeah, it shouldn't
hurt.
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't hurt.
Let's talk about men like Kevin.
Oh, Kevin has restored my faith. Let me tell you, I need to see men who stand up like Kevin. I am in awe of Kevin. For a man like Kevin to stand up and stand here and say, I love Jacky. My heart feels nice.
Me too. I'm like, dear
I
Lord.
was like, oh God, I am ready to changa for this wedding.
Yes, we
I'm
are ready
to
no,
go and say,
we are ready.
Because you know, when you see so much violence for people like me.
Because not all men are bad.
Yes.
He just proved that.
He just proved it. He has stood. Hello, this man has stood up and has said, I will be counted. Do you know what that is? That's a good man. I am so proud of Kevin because he not only did he stand up, alienda kwa kina Jacky. And he said, I'm here for your girl.
Yes.
The mother is like, no. And he's like, no, I want my girl.
Yeah.
Let her come.
Yeah.
I will take care of her. And he has proven it through and through that he loves Jacky.
Taking her to
He
hospital.
was taking her to hospital, staying with her, raising money to help with the bill because they have a very big bill. And we still have a very big bill because as you've seen Jacky's face, it needs to be
surgery maybe.
Surgery. So I have spoken to a plastic surgeon.
Yeah.
We'll need a bit of money
yes.
to just, you know, reconstruct her face. I don't know what can be done about the eye. I don't know. But
we obviously need some
we
money
will need
here.
some money for Jacky.
Yeah.
So that, you know, she can get her life back.
Yeah.
In between all these things, what you don't, I don't know whether Jacky mentioned it, she lost her business because she couldn't take care of it.
Yes,
she was in hospital fighting for her life. And after hospital, she was terrified. Let me tell you, Jacky is now, seeing Jacky here is already a miracle in itself. Jacky never used to leave the house. Jacky lives afraid. She's now not afraid because he's in jail. But if she knows this man is out of jail, her life of fear is going to start all over again. Because for a man who has the courage to, the determination to kill you, I mean, that's insane. This is something we see in movies.
Yes.
Not in real life. So we need Jacky to stop being afraid. Yeah. So she'll need a lot of psychological, obviously, evaluation and help, and just to talk to somebody who understands what she's going through, because what she's gone through is absolutely not normal. Man,
but surrounded by people like you, supporting her, left, right, and center, she will make it. Can we also appreciate the boda guys who walishika huyo Stanley? Because I'm looking,
because without them shikering Stanley, he would have gone away.
And Kevin would be in jail right now.
Absolutely. That was the plan.
Let me ask you, Njeri, because even as we are having this conversation, you are saying you are taking care of Jacky. There's another woman at Kenyatta National Hospital. You are talking to me about another minor before we even started. Why do you do this? Because you are not even paid to be here. No one is even paying you to take care of Jacky and the rest of the people. Why do you do this?
I have 25 women under my care in the shelter, women and children. And others in various places. I think you know, I have a lot of people under my care. What it is if I don't do this, who will? Who will? Once upon a time, I was young, I was naive, and I fell in love with a man. And this man hurt me. And I'm in a good place. I healed and I walked away. So I know what it is for a woman not to know, or a man not to have a place to run to. And so I want to be a sanctuary for people who are hurting. I want to be a beacon, a hope of telling people you can live and it is okay. And you can be okay and your children will be okay. Yeah. I hate it every time I see someone like Jacky, because I didn't know better. So I want to make it better for them. I want the people who are out there to know that you don't have to live in fear and you don't have to live in pain, and that, you know, a story like Jacky gives me hope. Jacky and Kevin, they give me hope that it is not all bad out here. And I want people to know that love shouldn't hurt. It shouldn't. And that you can believe in love. But love shouldn't have to hurt. And that these children that we are bringing up, we need to be careful with them, that they do not also go through the cycle of violence that is perpetuated every day. It's bad when a teacher calls me and tells me, we don't know what is it. I get calls, let me tell you. I get over 100 calls a day. It is catastrophic. We even have to now see how to plan around getting a call center, because I get calls at 1 in the morning, 2, 3. It's crazy. I need to sleep. I need to have a regular life because I'm also a mother, a wife, and you know, but the need is there and it is so big. It's big. It is big. And allow me to take this opportunity to say thank you, because I understand people like you don't get your flowers while you are still alive. But if it were not for you, many women and men would not come out and speak. Even before I got introduced to you, I was a fan of what you are doing at Usikimie. Would scroll on the Facebook page and even go through the stories. And even when I called you to come in one day and talk to us about the rape culture in Kenya, you just said yes. And for me, you give me hope that amazing people like you still exist. This is not even a paid ad, and I just want to let you know that we appreciate you. We appreciate what you are doing in our community. We appreciate the fact that you are taking your time to even care for strangers and allow us to just give you your flowers while you are still alive, because if there were not people like you who
would come out and be strong and even go on about these cases, even when no one is shining a light on them, we wouldn't know about such women like Jacky. So thank you. Continue doing what you are doing. May God bless you. And may, even in your shelter, may you guys never lack. Whatever you need for the women, may it always be available, right? What would be your parting shot now to our audience?
Let me first say this. Thank you for giving me a platform to even come and speak. Thank you for giving people like Jacky a platform to speak. Because even the last time I came here, what I haven't told you is the kind of response I got.
Oh, yeah?
Is how many people called me, contacted me.
Yes.
Some even donated to us.
Yes.
And some even told me, I saw you on Tuko, Njeri, can you help me? And I'm in this and this and this. So when you shine a light on the work we do, you're shining a light for women who wouldn't have known that there is a way you can live. We may not shelter you in our shelter, but there are other places that we can connect you with, and you will be safe. So what I'm saying is, my parting shot is this. Dear woman, dear man, dear child who is going through a hard time because of intimate partner violence, there is a way to come out. Look for me. My name is Njeri Migwi on Facebook or Usikimia. My number is 0718-158-400. Look for us. We will help you. We will help you with, we will give you numbers for counseling. We will see what we can do. But do not hurt in silence.
Do not hurt in silence.
There is a way out.
There's a way out.
We will help you get there.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Njeri. I know we've taken a lot of your time, but we appreciate your contribution to this topic. And my people, I want to know what you think about this, but I just want to repeat what Njeri has said. Do not hurt in silence. There is a way out, and love is not ownership. Please don't stay there. If it's not working, just walk away, right? And of course, if you would like to help Jacky, as Njeri has said, obviously she's going to need a lot of medical support. So if you are in a position to help her, the contacts will be right here, and I believe there's also an Mchanga number for that. It will still be right here. Help her. You don't have to do it even financially. Drop even some words of encouragement, and I believe she has spoken on behalf of so many people. And if you are in that particular situation she was in, remember, you might not be as lucky as she was to be alive. Let me know what you think of today's topic. You want to help Njeri also, you can go to Usikimie Facebook page. It's right here. Her contact details are also right here. Go and also tell her of the wonderful work that she's doing in our community. Let me know what you think of today's topic. If you want to share your story with me, my email is right there. Send a well-detailed brief of your story, and if it's a conversation worth having, then we'll definitely sit here on the red seats and share your story with the rest of the world. A huge thank you to my director and camera person, Edwin Ochieng. He gets to witness a lot of emotional stories, but he's always keen to shoot these episodes and give you the best. And also to our amazing editor, Yukabeth Mukami, for compiling this episode and making sure it gets to you right on time. Till next time, thank you so much for watching. Do not forget to subscribe, okay? Bye-bye.